Okay, everybody, it's 2:30, so let's go ahead and get started. Thanks for joining this afternoon. Today we have Renee Kramer from the Department of Environmental Quality of the state of North Carolina, and the title of her presentation is NC DEQ's Environmental Justice and Community Mapping System. And before we get started, just got to run through the business items that you've heard just about every session. If you can do me a favor, go ahead if you haven't already and pop open the chat that's located on the right-hand side of your window, and we'll do Q&A from there at the end of the presentation. So if you have a question during the presentation, go ahead and throw it into that window, and I'll be sure and handle those at the end. Also, as another gentle reminder that all the presentations will be uploaded to our YouTube channel, and you'll be able to see those in a few weeks after this. So you don't have to worry about taking notes. You can give your undivided attention to her. Also, one last thing is if you haven't voted for the poster session contest yet, please take some time this afternoon to do that, as voting ends at 6:30. And with that, I will toss it over to Renee, except I haven't read your bio. She graduated from the University of Delaware in 2013, go Blue Hens, with a degree in wildlife conservation and agriculture and natural resources. In 2015, she continued her studies at Duke University's Nicholas School, receiving her Master's of Environmental Management and a certificate in community-based environmental management. She's been with the Department of Environmental Quality for 3 years and serves as the Title VI and Environmental Justice Coordinator. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Renee.
Thank you. All right, so what we're going to do just to get started is to give a brief overview of environmental justice, because I know that is pretty important to have a baseline understanding before we go into the mapping tool itself. So the EPA's definition is the definition that DEQ uses, and that is the fair treatment and meaningful involvement of all people, regardless of race, color, national origin, or income, with respect to the development, implementation, and enforcement of environmental laws, regulations, and policies. And so that is important to keep in the back of your head. We're going to go into a little bit more depth in a minute. The criteria that DEQ looks at, we look at race and ethnicity, age and sex, disability, poverty, household income, and limited English proficiency. And what we do is we compare a project-specific area to the county and the state average. The project-specific area, I'll show you in the tool, we have a little radius that we'll draw around it, and then we also will look at the census tracts as the local area that we consider in comparison to the county and the state. Because we're really looking for a difference in that local area when compared to the state as a whole or a larger geographic area. So when we define environmental justice, it also can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people, and it can really depend who you ask as to what is at the heart of environmental justice. And a lot of folks will tell you that distributional justice is really at the heart of environmental justice and environmental injustices. And distributional justice is really going to be the equal distribution of your environmental benefits and burdens. That's really the heart of what a lot of people think that environmental justice is. But there are also some other components. Procedural justice is kind of how the law is written and rules are written and then enforced. And then the process justice piece is that piece for meaningful engagement, making sure that you're providing opportunities for everyone to be at the table. That can be things like language access, other barriers that might prevent people from participating in the process. This is just a very broad overview of environmental justice, but as we're walking through this tool, just kind of keep these three pieces in mind as we move forward. And then I always like to show this because it shows equality versus equity, and basically the concept of giving people what they really need to succeed in this world. In this case, of course, it's a pretty simplified view of watching a baseball game. But of course, this manifests differently as you talk about different issues that we're facing. And then the last one here is that that systemic barrier of the fence has actually been removed. And so less individual tools are needed to get everybody to the same level. So I just like to show this. It's a nice, powerful visual as we also are framing this in our minds as we're having this conversation. So our community mapping system and EJ tool itself, we went through a pretty intensive stakeholder engagement and development process over the last, I guess it's been about 3 years now because 2020 happened. But we started, I think, in the winter of 2018, actually, with some academic focus groups from universities across the state. And we focused that on GIS specialists and EJ specialists. And then we also had calls with other states. A lot of other states have been developing mapping tools focused on environmental justice concerns. We met with Pennsylvania and California specifically, and then we met with the folks at EPA who developed EJ Screen. I'll give a few examples of that at the end of this. But a lot of states are really working on developing mapping tools right now. I will say that this morning we had an all states EJ call, and one of the, I think, a senior policy advisor for the EPA stated that EJ would not be where it is today if it was not for all of the work and maturation of environmental justice mapping tools to date. So I just want to really emphasize the importance of mapping in environmental justice and the role that that's played for where environmental justice is as a whole today. So the other things we did for the development of the mapping tool is 3 public meetings across the state. You'll see those are kind of geographically diverse. And then we had several small community organizations with NGOs especially to get their input on what they wanted to see and how the tool would be most useful for them. And then we also have a website which includes a public survey that is up always, and I'll show that in a second. We had 4 main goals when we were creating the tool. One is to let the user define their own community, because everybody has their own definition. You know, you go to school, you go to work, you go to your parents' house, your grandparents' house. That's going to be different for everybody. And so trying to define the community for somebody is really not possible to make a useful tool. And so with that, we decided to develop a really interactive system, and you'll see that it really is a very dynamic, kind of updates as you can move around and kind of play around in the system. And then we also wanted to ensure data was always up to date. And so we did that mostly by pulling straight from other sources, which as DEQ, we have that luxury of each division specific staff. They update their own data, and so we can pull it straight from that page. And as they update it, it is constantly updated so that our system does not get out of date. And then our last one, of course, is to show DEQ relevant data. As I mentioned at the beginning, environmental justice can really mean a lot of different things. You know, there's things like food deserts and food accessibility, access to green space, lots of things like that, that are also really important when you're considering environmental justice. But for DEQ and for our mapping tool, we really wanted to make sure that we could focus on the DEQ relevant data, which in our case are permits and incidents. And so you'll see that reflected in the actual mapping tool. As I said before, here is the website. You're welcome to go play around a little bit yourself. On the website, we have examples from other states, which is really interesting to see what other people are doing. More and more states are developing their own tools. Then we have our survey. As I said before, that's always open. We're always welcoming more feedback on additional layers that might be helpful to include in the mapping system. Then we have our how-to user guide for folks to learn how to use it. We have our glossary of terms and background document. And the glossary of terms really lays out every single data layer that we have. And so I mentioned this specifically to this group to try and field off too many questions from the beginning. because this has a lot of information for each data layer. And so I want to make sure everybody's aware of this resource if you're interested in any specifics of the data layers that I probably or may not know off the top of my head. So we have for all of the data layers, from the regulated facilities to the health and the demographic data as well. All right, so here is the actual system. As you can see, this is the state of North Carolina with all of our 100 counties. The dark shaded orange area, I almost said red, it is not red, it's a little orange. Those are going to be our state designated tribal statistical areas. As you can see, there is kind of the largest area down here, and that's going to be the Lumbee tribe. And over here is going to be the federally recognized Cherokee, but we also have several other state recognized tribes across our state. To actually find a specific location, it depends who you are and what your purpose of using the tool is. If you have a specific exact address, you can go in and enter that address and it will go straight to that address, or you can just zoom in and go to a specific location. So for this example, we have zoomed into a specific location. It looks like on Montgomery-Richmond County boundary area. And we're just going to kind of walk through all of our options down here. So first we have our legend that will tell you which permit or incident is what each color symbol and what that is on the legend. The next thing that's actually probably one of my favorite pieces of the mapping system is the info summary. And what this does is this is that dynamic nature of the user can define their own community. And as you pan across or zoom in or out, this info summary will automatically update. I think I have a slide and a couple slides that shows how that happens. Before we get there, I'll show you that you can click on, you can expand each of these and get a little bit more detailed information on the exact permits if you're looking for a specific permit name or what have you. So you can kind of get that a little bit more information there. As I said before, if you zoom in or out or pan across, it will update. And so right here, you can see that it's updated from the last one. We had 29 air quality permit sites. We zoomed in, now we have 8. And so as you pan across, it will update. And I just think that's really, really cool. Here's a little bit more information on specifics for a permit itself. If you live near a permit and you're concerned, maybe you think something smells kind of weird, or I don't know, whatever, you might have an issue, it can help you directly exact what permit is nearby that might be causing this concern or something. And then if you have a concern, you can go ahead and call DEQ and have the permit name there. There are a bunch of other reasons why you might want the permit name and the date it was issued, things like that. Just really quick, easy getting this information, a little bit more detail on our permits or incidents that are on the mapping system. So then, of course, we can change our base map as you desire. So whatever is fun to you, you can change the base map. And then here we have the screening tool, which is one of the other really cool things. As I mentioned, you can define your own community. And so in this aspect, you can draw a point of interest and select the radius that you want to look at for that. And once again, you will be able to get this report, and then you'll be able to click that print button, and all of a sudden it will print this report and show you in an overview summary right here the number of each type of permit or incident. Let's see, an incident example would be above ground storage tank incident or underground storage tank incident. And so that's just a really easy way, just quick grab, print, depending who you are, where you might want to take that, but it's a really easy way to get that information quickly. Some other things we have on the community mapping system side are the managed conservation areas. Those are going to be things like conservation easements or registered heritage area. And then we also have North Carolina flood zones. And so you can turn those on or off as well, depending what you might be interested in on that side. So then after you kind of look around at the permit and facility side, you can go to the environmental justice tool. And so there are a couple ways to get there. The easiest way is just to click on an area that is not a permit or facility. And so if you just click on they're done by block groups is the level that we have on this iteration. If you click on that, this little pop-up will show up and give you just a really quick snippet. The basic definition of environmental justice is % minority and low income or poverty. And so that is where we put the approximation of those two items right here, as well as the total population in that block group. So quick, just snapshot right there, but then you of course can click on the environmental justice tool right there, and that will take you to our EJ tool. And what you'll see when it first opens, it's pretty hard to get a screenshot of this, but it will flash that block group that you've selected in this pink color, will flash a couple times. Brighter than that, again, it was hard to get on a screenshot, but then you can see where you're selected, and then again, you can zoom in or out on this community map right here. And what we have here, we have our selected area demographics. And once again, that is going to update as you change your map extent right here. So as you zoom in or out or pan side to side, this will automatically update. I'll show that in a second as well. And then of course, as I said at the beginning, what we do is we compare an area demographic to a larger area demographic, so small area compared to a large area. And so in this case, we've included statewide demographics for that easy, quick comparison. And this can be pretty powerful when you look at the change in this pie chart right here. And then on the right side, we have our health dashboard. I'll go into that in a little bit as well. So here I've zoomed in, and as you can see from here to here, there has been a considerable change in what that pie chart, shows. And so that's just a really, it's a great visual to help see how that changes. You have the actual numbers over here on the side if you want those exact numbers as well. There's different graphs and images that we use, but other things that can be really powerful. I think the household income is really interesting because this can just really show you, as the state, the majority are earning over 75,000, whereas in this area, you can clearly see it's a little bit shifted to the lower household income ranges. And so I'm not going to go through all of what we have as an example here, but I will say that we have race and ethnicity, we have annual household income, we have median household income, we have homeowner status, we have dependent populations, which is going to be certain age groups, younger and older age groups, and then we have limited English status. And so we also have we have 3 different maps over here, and this one can just show you the facility map again, so you can see what facilities are overlaid straight from this. The other thing that we have, is the sensitive receptors map, and so that's going to be things like churches, schools, hospitals over there. And then the health dashboard, what we have over here is, again, we compare it to the state average for this area. I should pause, back up a second. The selected area demographics, this, as I think I said before, this is the block group level. The health dashboard is on the county level. And so unless you are in between 2 counties, if you zoom in and you're only in 1 county, that's not going to update at the same rate that the demographic will update. But for the health dashboard, what we do have, we have heart disease, we have cancer, diabetes, preterm birth rate, infant death rate, child mortality rate, stroke, cardiovascular disease, and asthma hospitalizations. And then the last thing we have is the number of physicians, which is a very, very initial simple proxy of access to healthcare, which takes nothing into consideration about health insurance or any of those other barriers, but just a very, very initial proxy at that. And so this is just a really great way to kind of get a snapshot of how does your community compare to other communities in the state for these different indicators. So I mentioned at the beginning, there is the EPA's EJ screen, and this is just a really quick snapshot of that. You can get these reports for EJ screen as well that are more focused on that demographic data. We do actually have the demographic data on the block group when we print out our report that I showed earlier. We do have that was added when we came out with version 1.0 about a year ago at this point. But this is, here we go. This has, it's a little easier to digest. It's more friendly to look at it, I guess, than what ours is, which is okay for us because what we did was we really wanted to create a state-specific mapping system to be used in conjunction with EJ Screen. We did not want to recreate EJ Screen, but so if you take that facility screening report and then as well as this one, then you have two different things when you can get the facilities and the community demographics of an area. And so those two tools in concert are really, really powerful, and we use them both together in all of our EJ reports when we're conducting environmental justice analyses for permit applications. So just for everyone's awareness of EJ Screen, it's another really powerful and important mapping tool that is out there. So that is all that I have, and I think we can open it up for questions.
Wow, you timed that just right. You were only 10 seconds off, so.
Wow.
We had a little bet on exactly how long her presentation would take. So thanks, Renee. That was great, and it really, for me personally, it's really, really fascinating stuff. We do have a few questions that have come in, so let's go ahead and tackle those. Is it possible to upload a shapefile in order to define an area of interest?
That is a very, very good question. And unfortunately, the answer at this point is no. But that is actually the first time that someone has brought this up, and that has just sparked a lot of little thoughts in my brain. So maybe as we continue our iterations, that may be something that is possible. But I don't know what I say that as not the person who is actually, I should say disclaimer, I'm not actually the GIS expert who did the behind the scenes creation of this. So I don't know if that's possible, but that is a really cool idea.
Well, I tell you what I've done, Renee, is I'm going to capture all these comments because there are a couple of questions that might lead you to have some additional ideas. So I'll send those to you after the session. So
thank you.
You're welcome. Another one was, is it possible for the layers in the tool to be downloaded for use in ArcGIS? So are those possibly exposed as web services, or is that available for download? Are those being contributed to NC OneMap through their open data portal? Are there opportunities for that?
Yes. So all of the data that is in the mapping system is open data that is available for download. I believe that I'm not positive as to whether or not it's on OneMap. I know that all of the permits and facilities are available on the DEQ open data page. And I believe all of those are linked onto the glossary of terms that I showed. I'm pretty sure you can get to each of those layers. If you're interested in one or two specific ones, I would start there. But you definitely can get all of them downloaded through the DEQ open data page.
Great. And one question was, going back just a little bit in the presentation, is what constitutes a community for this map?
Yep. That is the question we have had since day one. I think that speaks to when I said we let the user define their own community, because we can't define a community. Of course, as you're using the census data, I said that we're using the block group data. So that is the level of data that we're using. But as far as what you want your community to be, it will depend how much you zoom in or zoom out on that data layer as to what data will be aggregated into that, into those, not maps. I don't know why I'm blanking, the charts and the graphs and stuff. So yeah, that's really up to the user to define how much they want to zoom in or how much they want to zoom out, or even the radius that I showed, what radius level that they want. If they want 1 mile, if they want 5 miles, that really is up to the user.
Okay, and see here, looks like we have one more question. Is the EJ screen mapping tool available publicly online?
Yep, absolutely. That is EPA's. Just want to make sure we clear that that's not DEQs at all. That is the EPA's. But if you just Google EPA EJ screen, it will take you to their homepage, and you can use that as well.
Okay, great. Wow, they're really starting to flow here. So in a chosen map window, does the demographic tool select multiple block groups? And if yes, must block groups be fully within the window or partially within the window?
Right. Okay. So for the EJ tool portion, if any piece of that block group is in that window, it will grab the data from that block group. The downside is that you can't like select multiple. Sometimes they're shaped, I mean, they're always pretty much shaped kind of funky, I guess. They're never just squares or circles. So it could be a little difficult trying to get the exact ones in, especially if it's kind of in like a funkier shape and it's not a nice square that you would want. But as long as one corner of that block group is in the map extent, it will pull all the data from that block group.
Cool deal. So got a couple more minutes. If anybody has one last question, go ahead and send it our way. We'll be sure and get it in there. But while I'll be waiting for those, let's just do a couple little housekeeping things here. Again, the poster session voting ends at 6 or 6:30 this evening. So go ahead and take care of that if you can. And YouTube channel will have these videos shortly. Just trying to fully make sure everybody's aware of that. And we do have another session coming up here in just a couple minutes. So a lot of kudos coming in for you. So great work on the subject and the solutions. And be sure to reach out to Renee if you happen to have questions or comments later on. So again, thanks, Renee, and everybody enjoy the rest of the afternoon.
Thank you. Bye.